everyone. Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Okay, here we are. Welcome back to the Flagship show, a 5 Yard Rush. Week 16 is in the bag. Also been and gone is Christmas and Boxing Day. Murf, before we talk NFL, how was your Christmas and Boxing Day, sir?
Yeah, it was all right, mate. Not too bad. It was pretty quiet. We were just here in the new house, just the three of us, and merriment was had, films were watched, and
Nice.
that was kind of it, mate. So not too much to report. Glad it's over in some regards because I feel bloated and like I haven't even had any booze. That's the weird thing. I've had literally nothing alcoholic. Oh no, it's a lie. I had a glass of champagne on Christmas morning, but other than that, that's it. What about yourself? How was it for you and your girls?
We're okay. Girls loved it. In-laws, Christmas Day, my family, Boxing Day. So today has been one of the best days of the year for me because they don't get to actually enjoy all the stuff they've got. But today was sit down, make a mess, open it up, play whatever you want. No family, no attention, no nothing, and just focus on them. So today's been a great day. More to come tomorrow.
Yeah, man, that's it. We've got a few more days of this. I'm not working for another week.
Me neither. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's amazing. Well, also what coincides with Christmas is NFL. You get games Christmas Day and Boxing Day, and then now last year was the famous on Christmas Day, the famous Alvin Kamara 6 touchdown game, and ruined or made a lot of people's Christmas and fantasy championships. This year, New Year's is when the fantasy season ends because of week 17. How are you shaping up, and are you ready for the final week of the grind?
I am. I play in a lot of leagues, not as many as you, but a lot more than most probably. I've hit a number of championships. Biggest one I'm really pleased about is it looks like I'm on to be in the BFFL Bowl in the BFU.
Nice.
So the Charlton Valiants have made that for the second year running. So I put a lot of effort and work into that. It's a manual league, as you know. It's not sort of a set app. So I enjoy that one, and I take a bit of pride in that one. So yeah.
Nice.
We shall see.
I'm still waiting to clinch my spot. I'm up against my new neighbour, actually.
Okay.
Funny enough, Ben Burridge, otherwise known as Gridiron in the UK. Yeah. He has just moved in 4 miles down the road from me. So I have a healthy lead, but not quite strong enough to say and call it a win. But we see how tonight goes. He's got 4 players to go. I've got Kamara to go in a 36-point lead. So we'll see what happens.
I made myself about 70 up and just CJ Gardner-Johnson to play. So I don't like that guy. I don't like that guy as it is. And if he puts up more than 70, I'm really not going to like him. That's for sure.
I don't think that's going to happen. I'm with you. Ben's got CJ's Gardner-Johnson. So if he gets a 0, I'll be really happy.
Fine. We'll both take that then. So 5 Yard Rush. Let's move to talk NFL now then. The guys at 5 Yard, other than myself, put a lot of effort in, a lot of working behind the scenes. And they're trying to improve the service and the product that we offer out to you guys. So on that note, something news coming their way, Murf. Tell us what you've been working on.
In terms of 5 Yard itself, not much. We're winding down. There will be some news about some playoff leagues. I'm waiting for MFL to launch those and get those done. But we have the finals of our Patreon league, where there's a great prize for all our patrons. But for the winner of that league, there's a signed bit of merchandise, which is pretty cool. I told them today they actually get a choice. So there's actually 3 bits of merchandise, and they get to pick the one that they want. So they're pretty cool. I'm not going to say what they are because the 2 that don't get chosen will be available and up for grabs for all our listeners for our mega Super Bowl show, which I'm just getting. Once I got this week out of the way, we'll start planning our Super Bowl show with our plethora of guests. It was a huge success last year. It was an almost 5-hour show, but it was a fantastic show. So much was learned, including the game plans to victory for the Buccaneers that was outlined brilliantly by Jeff Reinbold, who really did a great job. So we'll try and do something similar this year, based on obviously who we get in there. But lots of work. That's Super Bowl when we still got teams trying to clinch in the NFL. But the one thing I have launched this week is what I've started to call as my fantasy brain dump. Now, the problem I have with writing for the site is it takes a bit of time to put it out and to construct it and put it into a format that is what I call a professional piece of work. With the brain dump, it's not. I mean, it's written somewhat professionally. In some of the articles I write, I then post into there as well, like the waiver wire article. But also, I'm just going to post ad hoc things that just come into my brain that are useful for fantasy, or might not be useful. But the idea is, rather than just say, "Oh, I'm going to give you 1 or 2 pieces of content a week during the off season," I'm just going to post when I do research for the book or that we're going to write this off season, or anything I find interesting. I'm going to post it all basically there. So yeah, it's all good. Oh, our good old Buccaneers friend Jack has joined in. Even James got a brutal week 16, just how we predicted. Yeah. I think you did all right, Jack, didn't you? I know you had some rough ones, but I think you finished up, didn't you, for the most part? So the brain dump, you can subscribe to it. So it's agmurf85.substack. That's substack.com. Our good friend Jack, who just shared a message from, he also has just launched the Substack with great DFS plays. If you don't know Jack has won a significant amount of money this year on DFS, not just NFL, but all DFS. He's had a number of big wins, including a 5-figure win in EPL. So he's launched his Substack today. I've signed up because I'm not the biggest DFS guy and I'm not a big gambler, but his process and how he does things makes me a better fantasy player. So if you're into DFS, you want to win some money, he's going to have a channel that you can access, and it's going to pay for itself 50, 100 times over easily. But if you're not, and you're not a DFS, or you want to get into it, or you're not sure what you want to do, he's a very open and honest guy with a great channel. So I thought I'd give Jack a mention, not because he's just chimed in, but also because he's just launched that. But no, my Substack is going to be a bit more random. It's just going to be thoughts that come into my brain. And it's just going to be things I think are useful to know. With the Patreons, we've done a lot of work on the strategy side of things this year. And there's elements that I've learned from that I want to share for future content.
Jack's come back. Thanks for the shout out. Brutal slates on Thursday and Sunday. They were. But as I say, I think Jack did okay out of them. And I can vouch for Jack. I've been talking to Jack a long time. He's helped me become a better DFS player. There's many guys out there that have. So I'm not quite at his level.
I don't think many people are quite at Jack's level, but
no.
Yeah. So I'm going to put a link to Jack's Substack, and I'm going to put a link to my one in these show notes. So do subscribe, and he'll have a paid option and a free option, but the paid option is well worth exploring, especially if you're into FPL and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's what's going on. And then after this week, pretty much the fantasy content kind of goes off the rails for a bit. There's not much to talk about. I haven't decided if I'm going to write a week 18 waiver wire yet. I'm not feeling a lot of demand for it, if I'm honest. So I'll see how it goes. I might change my mind and do it anyway. But pretty much I think that will be the last bit of 5 yards fantasy content.
Yeah. I mean, previous years, week 17, some leagues have had bowl games on there, whether you agree with it or not. With the way it changed to the 18-week system this year, and with the bye weeks as late as 14, everybody had to reformat their setup, and it just become 15, 16, 17 just made sense logically. So I'd be very surprised if there's many leagues, maybe some best balls, I guess, running that will take into account week 18. But other than that, I can't imagine there's very many at all.
I think I'm in one league where there's going to need to be a lineup set in week 18, which I'm not overly pleased about. But the commissioner decides that week 18 should be a punishment if you don't do well in that league. I think you're in the same league as well. So, yeah, I think so. But there we go. So I think I've got one game in week 18. So
because you didn't do very well. Have I done very well? Do I need to play week 18?
I don't know. I think you did all right.
If it's the league I think we're in talking about, no, I don't. So, so week 16 news. Let's see what happened. If you guys have clinched their divisions and have clinched their playoff berth. So let's start with the Cowboys, shall we? Last game last night against the Washington football team. And a monster score put up on the board. Did you see that coming?
I would say it's sort of coming. I don't think anyone's surprised by the result. I don't think anyone's surprised by the fact that the Cowboys clinched the division or the fact that they won the game. I think the manner of it, but I think, their offense has really staggered the last few weeks. It's been the defense has really carried them. The Cowboys D was exceptional again last night. And I think they have to take the bigger part of the W here. I mean, when you look at it and you see 56 points, you sit there and think, oh, the offense has had a great day. There was a lot of short fields there. The defense had an absolutely phenomenal day. Caused a lot of pressure up front. Turned the ball over. Got sacks. Got lots of pressure. Forced short punts all day long. They just absolutely dominated in both trenches, but especially
Lawrence got a touchdown, didn't he? So
yeah, that's what I mean. We got a big man touchdown in there, so everything kind of went the Cowboys' way. They look really good, and you have to say that there's 4 teams in the NFC that look very, very good right now, and they're the 4 that look on course to win their divisions. 3 of them have won their divisions. Yep. One of them has not won their division yet, but look very on course to do so. And you have to say that any one of those teams can make the Super Bowl. They're all genuine contenders on their day, especially. I still think, I look at it now and think that the Rams and the Packers, just with where their squads are at, probably have a significant advantage. I think if the Bucs got healthy, you'd throw them in the conversation. Right now, they're decimated. And we're not going to learn a lot about the Bucs over the next couple of weeks because they've got the Jets and then Carolina. I would say that the Cowboys of the 4, even though they put up 56 points, I think they're, for me, just a small tier down on those 3. And I'd put the Buccaneers kind of in their own tier right now because they're hurt. A lot of injuries. So I'd say right now, I'd go Packers, Rams, the 2 teams I think are the favourites in the NFC right now. But as we all know, from last year and any year you've watched playoff football, anything can change. So, good night for Cowboys fans. They won the division for the first time in a couple of years. And, hey, it keeps Mike McCarthy in a job for another year, right? Which, for the rest of us, is all enjoyment and fun. So we can't moan.
And Jerry Jones has nothing to moan about. So move on while we can. Because they'll find something to moan about soon enough, won't it? Let's face it.
Exactly that.
The man's not happy for long. So, another team that clinched their division yesterday over in the AFC West with a very convincing display again was the Kansas City Chiefs. They fought early on. They looked troubled at times this season, but as ever, they're strong enough to come out of that AFC West quite comfortably over the course of the year.
And I think what's interesting is that I think they're a better team now than they were. I think you have to go through adversity to be a better team. The Buccaneers we saw last year went through November where they, threw away a game against the Rams, got absolutely humiliated by the Chiefs in the first half, and went through this stretch, lost to the Saints 38-3. I mean, they went through a period of 4 or 5 games where they looked pretty poor, and they were a better team for it. When you see teams, and for me, this is where I almost discredit Arizona a little bit, because for me, they're almost what last season's Pittsburgh Steelers were. They're going to make the playoffs based on what they did in the first 10 games, but they've run out of gas. And we saw this with the Steelers last year. They hit that adversity and they can't seem to get it right. And unfortunately, if you can't put the wins together at the end of the season, you're going to struggle and you're basically going to limp over the line, get into the playoffs, and then you're going to go out quite early. As we saw what happened with Pittsburgh last season, they started 11-0. Everyone talks about them being one of the best teams of all time, and they go out in a wild card loss to the Cleveland Browns in what was quite embarrassing display.
Yeah, it was.
And I think the Cardinals, I don't think are that bad. I think they're a very good team, but I think for me, I look at those 4 teams above them and think, they should have wrapped up that NFC West, losing to Detroit, lost again at the weekend. They're just completely out of sync, and it's going to be too late for them to turn it around. Whereas the Chiefs, I think, are a better team because they've gone through that adversity. They've come out the other side. I'd say the same. The Buccaneers are going through this now. If they can get through this period, they'll be a better team as a result of it. And I think some of these teams, Tennessee, if they can get it right about now, they showed it in the fourth quarter against the 49ers. If they can string 2 wins together here, I think they're a danger in the playoffs when Derrick Henry comes back. I think there's a few teams in that AFC. I'm not ready to crown the Chiefs just yet, but they clearly are the number 1 team there.
Same with the Colts.
Routes will go through. Yeah.
Colts are rolling.
The problem they've got with the Colts, and we'll get to this later, is that they have no offensive line next week.
No, they don't.
All their offensive line are on COVID reserve. You've got no Darius Leonard next week.
No.
I think Quentin Nelson is out this week.
Regardless, they'll make the playoffs. They'll make the playoffs.
Because
they got the Jags last week, so you wouldn't want to face them because they'll all be back healthy. They've had a nice little week off.
Yeah, but I think at this stage, a bit of rest doesn't really help you unless you're in the bye. I think you want to get games. You don't want to be losing games at this stage of the season. You want to be winning and winning convincingly. You want to be putting points up on the board, even if it's not all 100%. So I'm looking at teams like, I think, statement win by the Cowboys yesterday, the Chiefs yesterday, the Buccaneers yesterday, Green Bay Packers, the Rams. They're all putting together those 30, 35, 40-point wins, or the Cowboys' case, a lot more. That's where I look at them and think, well, they're not just getting better; they're actually starting to separate themselves a little bit now. But I do think Tennessee, if they get healthy, will be a threat. And I think the Bills, they put up a big win yesterday. That will really give them a shot in the arm to go and do what they did to Belichick. I think it's massive. That gives them control of the division. They win the division. They're another team to potentially threaten with. But it looks like all roads will go through Arrowhead once again. I think it's the 6th straight AFC West title. And with Mahomes under center, you can see him winning another 2 or 3 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, they got Bengals and Broncos. You could maybe see the Bengals creating an upset, but it would be a surprise. So, and Titans would have to win out then to nick it. So, yeah, I think the AFC is going through Kansas yet again.
I mean, yeah, I'd expect them to clinch the 1 seed there, and then I think we'll see what happens. But they've won AFC title games at Arrowhead. They've lost AFC title games at Arrowhead. But I think it's going to take a complete team to beat them. Mm-hmm. And right now, I look at who's left in the AFC. I don't see a complete team. I don't see a team that's dominant on
both
defense. Yeah. I think I look at each team. I think the closest thing you've got to it is the Bills. I think they're the closest team. Again, if someone told me right now that's going to be the AFC Championship game rematch, it wouldn't shock me. I think that's the...
It wouldn't have shocked anybody going into week 1 either, but about week 8, I think everybody would have been shocked.
No, exactly that. So I think it's going to be an interesting season. I think we kind of know where the AFC is going to shake out. We don't know who the 5, 6, 7 seeds are going to be yet. I think there's still 12 teams in the hunt that have 7 wins, which is quite extraordinary when you think about it. So there'll be drama down to the last game in the AFC. The NFC looks a lot more clear cut. We're 5 in at the 7, and we're looking at maybe 2 from 3. If the Saints win tonight, 2 from 4 maybe. We'll get in.
Just a nod on that one on Miami if we can quickly, because obviously they lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in their first 8 games, and yet they're still in a playoff hunt.
Credit to the coaching staff for not giving up. Credit to, I think it shows. They had a
friendly schedule. They had Houston, they had the Jets, they had the Giants, they had the Panthers, they had the Jets again. So they've a schedule which helps, but they've still got to execute on the day, right?
I think it shows great leadership from a coach like Brian Flores. Now, I'm not sitting here saying you should be nominated for Coach of the Year, absolutely not. But I do think he's shown that he's a good football head coach. I think it shows you've got the right coaching staff. They're building the right culture. There is some areas of that team that are very, very poor. And we've seen elements of that team this year that have been very, very poor. If they make the playoffs, I don't think they're a threat. I just think they've not. I think the other part of, and this goes back to, again, I'm not picking on the Steelers, but Steelers last year, that 11-0, didn't really play that many good teams. They played Baltimore in that run. And I don't even think they played Cleveland, or they might have played Cleveland that run. But they didn't play that many battle-hardened teams. And then what happened was when they started playing these good teams, they started losing. And when you have a false schedule like that, it can leave you a bit open because you've gone from dominating so many games to you actually have to defend and you have to really sort of knuckle down. And when you've not had to do that for a lot of weeks and it catches you out, you're gone, you're eliminated.
Where the Dolphins are now. Okay, they've got Saints with Ian Book. You probably still fancy them. Then they've got the Titans and the Patriots. So
and they will be the two games that we'll kind of get a feeling of. They're one of two teams right now in the NFL who I just have no idea who they are. I know they're a well-coached football team. I know they've got some good players, but I don't really know what they are as a team. I don't. They're 7-7. I think that's probably about right for what they are. But you know, them and the Denver Broncos for me are the two teams I cannot figure out for love nor money right now, based on what they are. So you know, they can still make the playoffs. I don't know if it's entirely in their hands. I think they're going to need a result to potentially.
They'd have to win out and hope, I think,
Yeah, I think they are going to need to win out and hope. But I'm just looking. I mean, there's so many.
At 1-7, I think they'd have took that chance.
Absolutely, and again, it goes back to the great coaching staff and everything they've put together. And credit to Brian Flores, he deserves a lot of credit for what he's done. And if they make it, part of me thinks they're there to make up the numbers. But, you know, they've done what, say, the Chargers failed to do, which was beat the teams they had to beat. You know, the Chargers get beat yesterday convincingly. Davis Mills looked like a Pro Bowl quarterback out there. And I like Davis Mills a lot. I actually think he's a very talented player. I don't know if he's a 10-year generational starter, but I do think I liked him in the draft process. I thought he had some ability, and it was really nice to see him and Houston. What I love this season is you've got these teams like the Jets, Houston, the Lions, who could have just phoned it in weeks ago. They could have phoned it in and they could have just gone, let's go. We'll take the number 1 draft pick. Job done. And I really admire Dan Campbell for me. I'm not convinced he's an amazing head coach, but I tell you what, he's an inspirational leader. And what he's doing with that squad is quite sensational in some regard to that not quitting, not bowing down. The Jags are the only ones for me. I watched some of that tackling yesterday by them, and you can tell they just want the 1 pick. They're not playing. They're not playing. It's poor. I can say 31 teams have put in a lot of effort. The Jags for me in recent weeks have been abysmal. And you know, I watched that Zach Wilson touchdown, and they just don't make a tackle. They just don't make a tackle. Like, you've got to make a tackle. And I appreciate you've got to be careful how you tackle. You got to tackle the quarterback, but come on now, push him out of bounds. Do something. He's on the touchline. He twinkle toes past him. He makes him look stupid. This is Zach Wilson. He's not known for that raw athletic ability. He's not Jalen Hurts. But anyway, it's another story. We got to celebrate some good news yesterday, didn't we?
We did indeed. It's been a long time coming. But Buccaneers are NFC South champions once again. First time since 2007. Kind of limped over the line, I feel. Well, limped being the apt word with the amount of injuries we're carrying right now as well. But, hey, it's nice to get it under our belts. And as an interview I saw, Bruce Arians in the locker room afterwards said it's just 1 banner and we want 3 banners. So we don't celebrate too much on this one. So,
well, yeah, we didn't even get 3 banners last year. We only got 2.
No. But I have seen my team win a Super Bowl before I've seen them win the division title. in recent years, right? It's crazy.
Yeah. I think we talked about the injuries there. Shaq Barrett's out for 2 to 3 weeks now.
Yep.
The injuries are piling up there, and it's going to be very, very difficult for them to play out these last 2 games. They're in the 4 seed. They need results to go their way to improve that standing. I don't think they're going to get a lot of help from the Packers, the Cowboys, or the Rams. So
no.
They can't drop below the 4 seed. So really, if something was to happen against the Jets, and I mean, you wouldn't expect it, of course you wouldn't, but if something was to happen, it wouldn't shock me going into week 18 that you'd see Blaine Gabbert play or all these folks play at least a half, maybe more, if there's not much riding on the result. But we'll see what happens with them. But, you know, you have to credit Jason Light. A lot of people asked for him to be fired. And you don't get to survive a number 1 draft pick not working out too often. But he got the coach, he got Tom Brady. And a lot of people think it's just Tom Brady, but the way that this team was built through the draft in the last few years, there's been a lot of very good draft picks made through the team. Anton Winfield Jr., Vita Vea, Tristan Wirfs, Carlton Davis, Jordan Whitehead. You know, there's so many of these players. Even Jamal Dean has played a part. Sean Murphy-Bunting. You know, a lot of these are defensive players, young defensive players that were written off who have done.
It's also the coaching and improvements. We've got an O-line where people like Donovan Smith, people wouldn't have cared 2 years ago if he was in the organisation or not. We've got Ryan Nielsen, who was a Division 3 college player, I believe. And these guys are now Pro Bowlers. Do you know?
I mean, Ryan Jensen, Ali Marpet were both Division 3 players. Alex Kappa was a Division 3 player. Alex Kappa, very close to getting a Pro Bowl nod for the 2nd year in a row.
And that comes down to coaching and their ability and being improved as players.
And hitting in the draft. Chris Godwin was a 3rd round pick. You know, there's been some whiffs in there, and everyone likes to make fun of the Roberto Aguirre pick, but it is what it is. But I think, you know, what you're seeing now is this sea change in the division where the NFC South in about 2 years' time is going to be really up for grabs, because you've got the Saints now with this. They're in the last phase of this era of dominating the South. Carolina are basically going through a rebuild. Atlanta basically going through a rebuild. The Buccaneers are in this interesting phase of next year they're going to have a 45-year-old quarterback under center. How long can that continue? And what happens after that? It's going to be an interesting division next year. Maybe not next year, but definitely afterwards. I think it's going to be a fascinating division to watch. But the Buccaneers will have bigger grounders and bigger eyes on prizes. It was a strange performance yesterday. Very good on defense yet again. They've not given up a defense. You know, they've not given up a touchdown in 10 quarters. Yeah, well, 10. Longer. 10 quarters. 9 quarters at least. Okay. So you have to admire the effort of the defensive unit who have been playing her most of the year. So Brady didn't have to be great yesterday, but they did a job. And some guys stepped up. Cyril Grayson. You know, the Buccaneers are going to be a team to watch if they get healthy, if they get these guys back. And, you know, we're not going to see Godwin, but if you get everyone else back, they're the champs. They can make things happen in the playoffs. I wouldn't write them off, but
and we can see even Antonio Brown coming back, huge addition to the squad, even with everyone else out. So
yeah, I mean, he's a person who has got an immense talent. He's not a person that I particularly like. He's not a person whose jersey I'd ever buy, but he's shown why he's so important and why the Buccaneers didn't cut him when, you know, you can make a case that they should. But that's for another day.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So they could have set a more high ground. He could have been gone, and we could have lost the first wild card game, and everyone was saying, why didn't you keep Antonio Brown? So business decision, I think that comes down to. So
well, I think it's one of those things, right? Where think of it from a fantasy football perspective, okay? So let's say you've got a player who you're never going to play for whatever reason. Maybe he never gets on your team, or you don't need him for whatever reason, right? And I'm thinking maybe someone like Terry McLaurin. You're probably not going to start him, or you might start him. Maybe it's probably too good an example. Maybe a next level down player from a Terry McLaurin. You're thinking, well, okay, I'm probably not going to play. There you go, Chase Claypool. That's the perfect example. So maybe Chase Claypool.
Injury filling. Yeah.
At best. Or maybe you don't even trust him in that situation, but you think, do you know what? There's just something in the back of my mind that thinks he's got talent. He could go off. I don't want him to go on another team. And part of me thinks that the Buccaneers probably had that way of thinking in mind. They didn't realise what was going to happen to Godwin and to Evans. It would have been interesting to see if both those guys had stayed fit, how much of a role Antonio Brown would have had. I can imagine it probably wouldn't have been as important or as big, because I think they would have wanted to teach him a lesson.
Yeah.
But I think it wouldn't surprise me if this organization moves on from him in the off season, regardless of how he does down the stretch.
But right now we need him. So
yeah,
we'll use
and
it.
that's it. You don't want to bite your hand off to spite your face, and that's basically what the Buccaneers have decided.
Fine. So moving on from Tampa, because I'm sure we can have this conversation for the evening, and nobody really wants to listen to it. We'll do that in our own time. All right.
Yeah, definitely.
Joe Burrow, 4th most amount of yards of all time thrown against the Ravens. The 2 games he's played against Baltimore this year, he has now thrown for 941 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's just about got their measure in the bag, right?
Yeah. It was interesting yesterday to see John Harbaugh. He denies this in the press conference, was upset. He looked a little frosty in the handshake. And then Joe Burrow's response was, well, teams did it to us last year. Listen, I think he's got a bit of swagger. I like Joe Burrow. I think he's one of those players who's developing into a high-level quarterback. Do I think he's top 5 yet? No. Do I think he's top 10? Absolutely. And I think he's demonstrating a high level of skill with, T. Higgins was incredible again yesterday. Chase had a good game. Tyler Boyd had a good game. They all had a good game. I think literally you're looking at the Bengals right now and think they're a fun team to watch. Like, regardless of what happens to them, whether they win the division, whether they get in the wild card, or whatever happens to them, I think they're a year away from being a really good team that could be a threat. I don't think they're gonna go on a deep run this year. I think they'll make the playoffs, which would be amazing just for that city to have a team back in the playoffs. But I do think they're a year away. Next year, with that young group of players, get a little bit more of that O-line cemented up. I'll tell you what, they're going to be fun. They're going to be a fun team next year to watch, and they're a fun team to watch now.
I tell you what, we're talking about week 18. Bengals play the Chiefs next week. Probably fancy the Chiefs to beat them. The Browns play the Steelers. If the Browns win that, week 18 becomes Bengals v Browns for the title of the AFC North.
Yeah, which you'd make the Bengals definitely favourite for that. I think people are ruling out Baltimore at their peril. I think they're a different team when they bring in Lamar Jackson. If Lamar Jackson comes back next week, I think he can cause the Rams. But I think he's the sort of quarterback that will cause them problems. With mobile quarterbacks is the one thing that Sean McVay has shown I don't want to say a slight weakness to, but I think he has shown that they're a lot harder to coach against in the unpredictable nature of Lamar Jackson. I wouldn't completely rule out some form of result there for Baltimore. It'd be tricky, but I wouldn't necessarily say that was a done deal. And then next week, and then week 18, they have got the Steelers, which I think they'll take care of business there. I don't think the Steelers are a great team. And I think they're just sort of limping to get to the end.
If the Ravens beat the Rams, the Bengals lose to the Chiefs, and the Browns beat the Steelers in week 17, there's 3 teams going into week 18, all with something to play for. Well, title to play for.
Well, they all do.
Division title to play for. And it will probably be a case that the one that wins the division title will make the playoffs, and nobody else will because of the fact they beat up on each other. I think all the rest of them will miss out on the playoffs because of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there'll be a lot riding on week 18 there. So if you do a week 18 whatever ad Murf, it'll be anybody that's on them 3 teams because they might be the only 3 with something to play for at that stage.
Well, I think I'm looking at scenarios, and I think it could be most of the AFC and maybe the 49ers and the Eagles and the Vikings and the Saints. Maybe we'll know more tonight, but it'd be interesting to see what those scenarios are going into week 18. But yeah, it'd be targeting teams that have got things to play for, who can improve their standings. No, don't go get Ian Book. I don't even know how we've got to the point.
We've got about 10 hours, and we will know whether Ian Book is the new forthcoming of.
No, I don't need to watch the game to tell you that he's not going to be. I watched him enough in college, and I listen. I think Ian Book getting drafted might be one of the most miraculous things I've ever seen. He was not very good. I mean, mind you, Felipe Franks plays in the NFL. When I say plays, he's made an appearance in the NFL. Yep. That was shocking to me. I mean, yeah, what next? I'm going to see Emory Jones in the NFL? No, thanks.
Oh, dear. I'll save that one for next year.
He's not going to be playing in the NFL next year because he'll be transferring to North Dakota State or somewhere because that'll be the school that wants him when he leaves Florida. But that's a different story. I'll save that for the college pod.
Fine. We're going to jump to the next one. We'll come back to it. So, because you've got a couple of injury bits last on here, but we're going to move on to the Jaguars quickly. No, we're not. We're going to move on to Washington quickly. Teammates having a fight. Well, teammates around handbags might be a better phrase.
Yeah.
Jonathan Allen, Darren Payne. He didn't miss him from about a foot, which is weird.
I just don't understand how that can happen. I just don't.
I don't mind it, to be honest. If he was a fan, they're obviously holding. It's about accountability, I guess, over whether there was a mistake or an error or what. I don't know. They're holding each other to account, and I don't mind that as a fan on the sideline.
I just don't think you can do it on a stat. I think I don't think you can do that sort of thing. We saw Leonard Fournette get in trouble with it, right, a few years ago, and he lost his guarantees as a result. So yeah, I'd be a bit careful going forward. I don't like to see that sort of thing personally. I think if you want to do that in the locker room in private, I think fair enough. But I think accountability, get in the person's face, shout at them, fine. But yeah, I think you've got to be a bit careful.
Did you notice as well the best thing that came out of that Washington Cowboys game? Do you remember a couple of weeks ago they played and the Cowboys took their own sideline benches to Washington, didn't they?
Yeah.
Did you notice Washington took the Bears yesterday to AT&T Stadium just as a little... Did you notice that?
I didn't. I'll be honest, I didn't notice that. And I mean...
That's proper pettiness, that is, right?
The difference is the Cowboys won both games, right? So...
Yeah, take whatever you like. We'll take the win. Yeah. Thank you very much. But I just thought it was the ultimate pettiness to pay them back by taking your own benches as well. So.
Yeah, it really was. That's for sure.
A couple of injuries to note from yesterday. Miles Sanders appears to have broken a bone in his hand.
Yep, he's having an MRI today, so they're looking to see if he can play through it. I'm not optimistic, but we'll know more in the next day or so.
Shame because they've been rolling. They're one of the teams just inside the playoffs right now, and they've been rolling with a bit of form. I mean, 4 or 5 weeks ago, you wouldn't have put the Eagles in the playoff contention conversation at all, but they're there. They're there on merit, I guess. So they'll need him if they're going to continue that push, I guess.
Yeah, and again, I think they're another team that benefited from a bit of a schedule bounce. But we're going to see what they're going to do over the next couple of weeks, and again, see what they're like. But I don't think they're going to be, they're going to be, I think, projected to be the 7th seed as it stands right now, which means they would play, they'd play Dallas. That would be interesting. Another NFC East affair if things stay the way they do. Yeah, I think Dallas would have too much for them, to be honest. But at least I think if you're Philly, if I'm looking at how Philly would match up, I think that's probably the game they would take. I don't think they would take the Rams, and I don't think they'd match up well against the Bucs.
Nope.
But I think against the Cowboys, given the fact they played twice already this year,
they're used to the stadium, used to the arena. Yeah,
I think you'd sort of go, yeah. Do you know what? They would probably take that game right now.
And they would. I just can't see them stopping the Cowboys scoring enough points, but hey, they got to get there yet. So
Yeah.
Other big injury was the man I think who let everybody's fantasy side down yesterday, everybody's DFS side down yesterday. James Robinson, the running back for the Jaguars. He looked like he had this week was his headline highlight week, and sadly he got injured very early. I think it was a torn Achilles.
Torn Achilles, that'd be him. That'd be him done for the rest of the year. He's not come back from that with 2 games to go. So I'll talk about who you should pick up in replacement of him. But yeah, you don't need to be waiting long on news of this. It's been pretty much confirmed. It's a shame, but this is the problem with running backs, and these things can happen, unfortunately.
Yeah. And while we're at the Jaguars, obviously head coach news, they can now start talking to assistants in the league, can't they? So a few names being banded about, I believe.
Yeah, but Byron Leftwich, who used to quarterback for them, was drafted out of was drafted by them in the first round. Yeah, he was high in the draft. And obviously Buck's offensive coordinator. I think would be a great fit. If I'm being honest, I think that would be a good fit for him and for the Jaguars. Someone who knows the team, knows that area, has some affinity with the fans. I don't think he's a legend, but I think he's someone who would garner some respect given the fact he's just coming off coaching a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. Doug Pederson, who of course won Super Bowl 52 with the Eagles. There was that falling out, but he's shown himself to be a highly competent coach. Jim Caldwell is the other one, which I don't get it. That one I don't get. I don't get Jim Caldwell. I think that one for me is a make up the numbers kind of interview. Maybe you're picking his brain about something. I don't see that being a good fit. I could make a case for Pedersen. I could make a case for Byron Leftwich. I think either or. I think the fact that you've got a young quarterback, I think having someone like Byron Leftwich would be very useful. On the flip side, Doug Pedersen was also a quarterback. He was a backup quarterback in his career. I think either of those two options make a lot of sense, although you've got a guy who has done it versus a guy who hasn't, but has been working with some of the very best people in football. I can make the case either way. I think either would be a very good appointment.
I mean, from Byron Leftwich, he does the play calling for the Bucs as well, doesn't he? He was drafted by the Jags. He himself has probably learned over the last 2 years whilst coaching somebody like Tom Brady as well.
Yeah.
So
absolutely,
he's young.
He's young. He'll bring enthusiasm. He'll get the fan base behind him quite quickly. It'll be new. It'll be fresh. I think that's always a good thing. But with the Jags, do you want to keep going down these rookie head coach appointments? And maybe you want someone who has been there and done it and built a program and built a culture that's won. I mean, I personally think Byron would be a better choice, but I can understand the logic either way. Well. Yeah, I don't think the money's an issue, but I think either way, I think I can see the logic with both appointments. I really can.
Fine. And last on the images for now was Clyde Edwards-Helaire has ruled out. He's also had a neck injury or collarbone injury, I believe.
So collarbone injury. He was negative on the X-rays, so we're waiting on the MRI to see what the extent of the damage is. There's some roster moves you should make this week to correspond to that injury, which we'll talk about in just a second.
We're about to get into it, yeah. And we start back at the Bucs.
Yeah, we start back at the Bucs. So Ronald Jones was probably the number one waiver wire ad last week. Yep. Now we saw a role in which Ronald Jones got the majority of the work, but Keyshawn Vaughn did cap his upside. And I'm not talking about just the big run that Keyshawn Vaughn broke off for the touchdown, but he did still get himself 8 or 9 carries. The Buccaneers aren't a team that are going to run the ball 20, 30 times a game that often. So I think now we know what Ronald... I mean, we kind of knew anyway. It was just interesting to see, would they bring in somebody... I mean, I know they signed Lev Bell. I wouldn't worry about Lev Bell. It was interesting to see, would they use somebody, and would it be a 2/3 to 1/3 role, which is kind of what we have, or was Ronald Jones going to get 80% of the role, which makes him a lot more attractive from a fantasy perspective. He's still startable, but I think you're looking at that 20 to 24 RB range as opposed to that maybe 12 RB 12 range that I think people kind of thought they were getting with him. I think his upside is capped. I still think he's going to get all the goal line work. I still think he's going to get a lot of the high action work. But I do think he's someone you've got to be a little cautious with, I think is how I would put it.
And he also feels, as a Bucs fan, when you watch it, he's just one mistake away from not playing again the rest of the game, even with unlimited options.
And we've seen this time and time again. Misses a blocking assignment because it's not what interests him, and he can go sit down for a few plays, and that is what happens. And we've seen it happen time and time again.
Bell got some reps, and if we're up in a game and he makes a mistake like that, it wouldn't surprise me to see him sit a quarter and keep giving those guys some ball. So
I think you've got to look at him being a cautious play as opposed to a high upside play.
Yeah. Fine. 2 more running backs to be, well, not wary of, but probably discard at this stage are the Panthers, Chuba Hubbard and Amir Abdullah.
Yeah, no need to play them next week. You can just ignore them completely. I remember being on the Fantasy Pros podcast and everyone was getting really anxious about picking up Chuba Hubbard, and I was like, I think you get 1 or 2 good weeks out of him at best. I don't think you got that. You can drop Chuba Hubbard now in redraft, and Amir Abdullah. Neither of them are going to be relevant next week. So
I was forced to start Amir Abdullah this week in one league, and boy, he should have caught that touchdown, shouldn't he? He had a dump off touchdown, but a QB, I think it was Cam Newton at the time, was under pressure, and he had to get rid of it early. That was it. That was my point. It was there, and it was gone, and that was it.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see many opportunities from what they'll do. I think you'll see Sam Darnold try and run it in if they get close and short again. But yeah, you can just ignore them for next week.
Fine. So with them going out, a recommended ad for yourself is the resurgent Rex Burkhead.
Yeah, so he was in the Substack Week 16 Sleepers article I put out Christmas Eve. I talked about Rex Burkhead being a bit of a desperation play. I played him in the Kings Classic semi-final. And he put up 149 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Stocks and I are going to knock off the 1 seed from Brazil. So,
nice.
Yeah, I don't think they're too happy to be Rex Burkhead. Sexy Rexy did the job. I just think with Sexy Rexy, he's got no competition for touches. David Johnson's banged up. I think he's just a winning runner. He's just willing to do all the dirty hard work, and he's a solid player. And I think they realise that they can just move the ball on teams, and they'll do that again next week against the 49ers. I don't think he'll be 149-2, but I think I can see him getting 15, 20 carries, and I think he'll be good enough for an RB2 spot next week for sure.
68 yards on the score maybe, and you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Fine. The next name to add is somebody I'm quite pleased to see. I was a huge fan of this guy when he left Tennessee and came into the NFL. Hasn't quite delivered yet, but the injuries at the Chargers meant he had a good game this weekend. Josh Palmer.
Yeah, scored a touchdown. Chargers struggled to move the ball at times on Houston, which is not a sentence I thought I'd ever say. No. But at the end of the day, he did get in the end zone and got a significant amount of work. Now, for those of you that own Mike Williams, he is unvaccinated, which means he will not be eligible to play this week, which means it will be Josh Palmer time again this week. So if you missed out on Josh Palmer this week...
back? Do we know?
Yeah, different role though. Jaden Guyton will play the heavy X off over the top. He could be back. He's still on the COVID list. There's a chance he could make it back, but I much rather think that Josh Palmer is the guy who will get a significant amount of work with Keenan Allen this week, and as the Chargers look to bounce back and continue their playoff push.
And I'm here for it because I've got Josh Palmer stashed on a lot of taxi rosters somewhere in my dynasty leagues because I just had a big fan of the guy coming out of college. So
love that.
Start all Bengals. Everybody. If they're a Bengal, if they're striped up, start them is your next line, right? Even against the Chiefs.
Yeah, big shootout game. They're going to need to put up a lot of points. I said on the Flagship show last week where you weren't here, unfortunately, that you should start Tyler Boyd. I hope you listened. You know, he returned what we needed him to return. If you had him on your roster, and I fully expect him to all get used again this week against the Chiefs. I don't expect the same level of production or outcome, but I do think they're all going to be fantasy relevant this week. So fire them all up, even Azama, fire them all up.
Fine. And obviously the other one relates to what we just spoke about with Miles Sanders' injury. Miles Sanders can't play. Boston Scott, Jordan Howard.
Well, Jordan Howard's got a stinger, so he is going to struggle as well. So I put Boston Scott in the waiver ads this week, and I fully expect him to be someone that you should be picking up in leagues. But what I will say is if Jordan Howard can overcome that stinger and Miles Sanders is out, it's likely that Jordan Howard will be at the top of the depth chart. But if that stinger is causing any problems, which it could do quite likely, then Boston Scott appears to be the only healthy one and more likely to take control of the situation in that
backfield. Does that maybe make Jalen Hurts a little bit more of a better option if you're going into this week into a super flex and you're unsure of your QB2? Miles Sanders being out, because Hurts can run the ball.
Well, I think if you have Jalen Hurts, I'd be questioning why you're not starting him, because he's a top 6 QB option.
Against Washington as well.
Well, I think whoever... I'd be interested to see if you've got a team where you've got 2 QBs and one of them is Hurts. I'd be questioning why you've kind of got both of them on there. And then that's a genuine start sit. But yeah, I mean, if you have Jalen Hurts, 98% of all circumstances, you're playing him anyway. So
fine. Saquon Barkley, you are done with for now.
Yeah, I've seen enough of him for this year. He's not running the ball brilliantly well. He clearly isn't 100%. Leaving games, coming back. You know, they're trying to force a square peg in the round hole for me for no reason. Devonta Booker is getting more and more work every week. I just think exactly that. I think he is someone who's going to let a lot of hearts melt in championship week. I think I'd much rather just sit him and not have to deal with the problem and risk him putting up 15 points, because I don't think he's going to get more than that, than him score 5 or 6 again and not do a lot. So I just think, you know, who's going to be throwing the ball? It's going to be Mike Glennon or Jake Fromm. Yeah. Neither of them are good. Like, I just think if I was the Giants, I'd be shutting down Barkley. Well, you've got nothing to gain putting him out there now. You've got absolutely nothing to gain and everything to lose. Shut him down. Let Devonta Booker run it out. I just think if you are in a redraft league, do you know what? I drop him. Here's why I drop him is because I don't think he's going to have a great game, and I'd let someone pick him up and start him.
Yeah,
exactly that. Bit of gamesmanship there for you.
Fun. But at the Giants, you reckon that Kadarius Toney, if he plays, is a pickup?
Yeah, he played this week. A bit of a snap count he was on, but he looks good. He's always a threat for me. I think the yards after catch, the ability to make guys miss. He will be heavily targeted. I think he got 8 targets on Sunday, which, given the people throwing him the ball, is impressive in its own right. But I just think for me, I look at Kadarius Toney and think if I was the Giants right now, who is the most likely person to give me the yardage I need? And it's going to be Kadarius Toney getting 8 targets. I think you'll see the snap count go up. So if he's fit and we're not seeing too many injury report issues with him, I think I'd be firing up in the flex next week.
The next one is a name I'm familiar with and very surprised to see it on here, because he was a Buccaneer and we probably had reasonable hopes for him, especially as a returner at the time, but to develop a role. And he went to the Rams, and I don't actually know where he is now after the Rams. Where did he go right now?
He's at Jacksonville, so Dare Ogunbowale is now the only. So he's now the only fit running back on the Jags roster. We know that James Robinson has torn his Achilles. He's probably not going to play for the rest of the season. We know that Carlos Hyde is on IR. He's probably not going to play for the rest of the season. Do you know who Dare Ogunbowale is going to be competing for snaps with? And I put competing in quotation marks. Nathan Cottrell.
Okay.
Nathan Cottrell, who played one snap on Sunday. So this is Dare's backfield. Dare Ogunbowale played 61 snaps on Sunday because James Robinson went down early. 34 routes run, 17 carries to Nathan Cottrell's 1.
So Dare's the way to go.
Dare's a volume play. There's no one gonna take work from him. They're not gonna sign someone for the sake of these last 2 games unless there's severe. They need to bring someone off the street to run the ball, and even then they're not going to learn the playbook and the cuts in time. So I think what you're going to see here is just them use Dare Ogunbowale in roles and situations to run the ball.
I guess for him, he's potentially playing for a career or a spot on the roster for next year, so he's got to make every opportunity he's got.
Yeah,
so
he's probably not going to
either.
And he's probably not going to be on the Jags next year because they've got players to come back. They've got their number 1 draft pick from this year, Travis Etienne. You've got James Robinson and Carlos Hyde are all under contract. So it's unlikely that Dare Ogunbowale is going to be available. So he is playing for an NFL job next year.
Same as we saw last year, I guess, with Mike Davis and people like that. So
exactly that. So big one.
Fine. Michael Carr of the Jets. You reckon to bench this one?
He's against the Buccaneers in Week 17. I just think they abandon the run when they're behind in games, the Jets, pretty frequently. So it's nothing to do with him as a talent or anything else. It's just situationally, it's not going to pan out for him in Week 17. So unless you're absolutely desperate, he shouldn't be anywhere near your starting roster this week.
Self-explanatory then. And over to the Rams. Bench Daryl Henderson and start Sonny Michel.
Yeah, I mean, he left the game again yesterday. He's not 100% fit. It's just likely, I think, now that they'll probably phone him in until the playoffs. I mean, Daryl Henderson played 5 snaps yesterday. Sonny Michel had 63. So this is Sony's job now, at least for the rest of the regular season. Again, the Rams have bigger fish to fry. They've got very little to risk. Sony is good in his own right. You don't need to. It's not like we're playing someone who's unknown and unproven. Sonny Michel's a former first-round pick in the NFL draft. So I think, they've got Cam Akers to come back. I don't think you'll see Cam Akers this week. I think you'll probably see him in Week 18. But I think Darrell Henderson is not worth anything significant in week.
Even if you see Cam Akers is going to be limited, snap counted. He'll be there for the playoff football as opposed to anything else. So that, I think,
exactly that.
That'll be about getting fit and getting contact on him.
Exactly that. So I think he's a bench or a drop.
Fine. Don't drop KJ Osborne, but keep a close eye on Adam Thielen, who I guess production is closely related.
Well, he got injured yesterday again, Adam Thielen. So if you were thinking about clearing out KJ Osborne, I perhaps would be holding fire on that and looking at what happens with Adam Thielen over the next couple of days. Obviously, they will like to get him on the field because they are playing for a playoff spot. But we'll see what happens over the next couple of days. It's going to be a tricky one for sure.
I have so much Adam Thielen that even going into this week was concerning. Now going into next week is even worse. Isaiah Mckenzie was many people's tout this week for a big game in the absence of Gabriel Davis and Mr. Non-COVID vaccination. I've lost his name in my head now.
Cole Beasley.
Thank you, sir. And Isaiah Mckenzie didn't disappoint.
Well, I'd like to see who else touted him. I didn't see many people talking about Isaiah Mckenzie. In fact, when I posted on Friday about Isaiah Mckenzie, someone said to me, "Who's that?" Isaiah Mckenzie was someone who was always primed to have a big game, not as big as I expected or anticipated. But
I picked him up somewhere and kept him on the bench.
Yeah, but you know what? It meant someone else didn't have him, which is sometimes not a bad result.
Correct. He
will be a fringe wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 option this week because Cole Beasley will not be able to play because he is famously unvaccinated. Gabe Davis might be back, but
Gabe Davis is unvaccinated as well.
Well, there you go. And Emmanuel Sanders is done. He just does not look good. He doesn't look healthy. He doesn't look fit. He's out there. He's running routes. He's a distraction for sure. And he's going to garner some... but he's more a decoy play at the moment than he is a severe target hog like he was earlier in the season. So,
and they've got a decent matchup against the Falcons.
Yeah, exactly that. I think 11 catches yesterday for 125 yards and a touchdown. Wouldn't shock me if he got close to that again this week against the Falcons.
Yeah, fine. Craig Reynolds is a drop for you now. Swift coming back.
Yeah, we saw Jamal Williams dominate that role yesterday. Whether Smith's back or not, because Jamal Williams is back, there's just nothing for Craig Reynolds. He's just a roster clog now, unfortunately. Love Craig Reynolds. Fair play for what he did, but he is done. You can cut him.
This one surprised me. Cordell Patterson to bench. Now I've got a fair few pickups of him sat here going with the championship games. Why have I got a bench in there?
I just think his usage is really starting to hit a bit of a flaw now. People have worked out how to nullify a bit of that threat that he was bringing earlier on in the season. Earlier on in the season, we didn't really know what his role was. Was he a running back? Was he a wide receiver? Where was he lining up? How was he lining up? Where was he going to hit you? Was he going to hit you with the run? Was he going to hit you with the pass? We didn't really know what he was. Now we do. We now know he's a hybrid player who can line up everywhere. There's enough tape of CPAT now, and you're starting to see the returns diminish. Now, he got into the end zone against the Detroit Lions, and well done for him. He did a great job when asked to do it. However, he's pretty much in a 50-50 timeshare running back role with Mike Davis. Mike Davis actually looks more effective carrying the ball, but they only ran the ball 14 times, 18 times yesterday, but only 14 went to Davis and Patterson. They split them 7 each, pretty much equal snaps there. So you've got this usage of Patterson that's just really diminished. He scored 5 receiving touchdowns in the first 8 weeks and 3 games over 80 yards in those times. But, he's only had 5 receiving yards over his last 3 games, and he's not carrying the ball anywhere near enough for him to be this big threat. So
become quite score dependent then.
Basically, we're in a situation now with CPAT that that offense is all about Pitts. It's all about Pitts. They're going to use Hurst more. They're going to use those tight ends as much as they can. Gage, although he didn't have the greatest games yesterday, still going to get targets. It's just CPAT's just worked his way down the order, whether he's tired, whether he's got an injury, whether teams have just schemed him. I don't really know. Maybe it's a combination of all those things. But for me, CPAT is very much unless you're desperate, he's a bench play. But maybe at running back, you're going to struggle to have anyone better than him to replace him with. But if you do, then he's a bench play for me.
Fine. One you do recommend starting is, Seattle take the philosophy of whoever's fit runs the ball, and it can't have been said a lot in his time in Seattle, but Rashad Penny at the minute is the one that's fit and healthy, and he's doing very well with his opportunity.
Still dominating. He's dominating the snaps. He's dominating the carries. 17 of the 23 running back carries, 21 running back carries went to him yesterday. But he's just the workhorse. He's doing an excellent job. I mean, I know DJ Dallas got more rushing yards, and I know that he vaulted the touchdown, but the usage all trends to Penny. Penny's getting basically all the work. He's still getting pretty much all the third down work. He's getting all the 2-minute drill. He's getting everything, really. All the significant plays in the game are all going through Penny. So don't be too disillusioned by the box score if you do box score scouting. And look at that and think, DJ Dallas, he's going to be the guy there. That's not the case. It's just the fact of situational football. Dallas got a little bit better, but Penny's the start next week, not Dallas.
Fine. Come back to the next one, but Daryl Williams is an ad for you, I guess, with Edwards-Hilaire's injury.
Yeah, exactly. If you can find Daryl Williams, he's going to get the majority of the work. Derek Gore will get a little bit of the work. I might have a significant role, but it's mostly going to go through Daryl Williams. They were pretty much splitting the role when both fit. I'd see Williams getting probably 70%, 75% of the role if Hilaire it does not go.
And finally on this, the last one we skipped over was bench Chase Claypool. We mentioned it earlier. If you've got him, you probably should be starting him anyway. But now you're definitely on the bench job.
Yeah, I talked about him last week just with the attitude behaviour. He did see an uptick in snaps this week. So you're going to see some people want to reach for him, but you've got bad quarterback play.
Who they got? They've got the Ravens, right? You've just seen every Bengals receiver put up a mountain against them.
Yeah, but you've got a quarterback who can't throw the football very far.
He can't walk very far, to be honest with you.
And you've got that problem, and then the other problem that you have is there's still this discipline issue going on.
Yeah.
You know, he has annoyed a lot of people. He is getting sick. Yes, okay, his snap usage did go up yesterday, and he did see more snaps back to near enough every snap, but it's difficult because at the end
they don't have the Ravens, they have the Browns.
I was going to say I didn't think it was the Ravens, but
no, they have got the Ravens week 18, but not this week.
Yeah, I mean, we also saw that he played a lot of snaps when the offense was on. He still only got 4 for 41. Yeah, I just think he's just not a play for me right now. It'd be Deontay Johnson at a push on that offense and Najee Harris. I wouldn't want anyone else.
Cool.
And then just take everything out of the situation. Just, see you later. Bye.
Fine. And finally, I guess sort out your bench. Now, I'm going to guess this is if you're playing in championships. Get your starting lineup set and get all those high upside potential players off of everybody else's team and into your bench so that they can't be used against you, I guess.
Yeah, what you've also got to do is you've got to have players at every position on your bench. So we're seeing with COVID, lots of COVID cases. You don't want a nasty surprise like a Travis Kelce or a Lamar Jackson.
I with James Conner and late on Christmas night.
There you go. So you've got all these situations going on, and you need to be a bit careful to make sure you've got adequate talent in every spot. On the roster, there's going to be very few people competing on the waiver wire. We've gone through some names. The waiver wire article has given you some more names. So there's plenty of information out there to help you pick up relevant players at every single position. So, just in this show, we've talked about Ogunbowale, Penny, Daryl Williams,
Burkhead.
Rex Burkhead, Mckenzie, Josh Palmer. These are the sorts of players that you could be picking up that if someone goes down with COVID, you're not completely snookered. And that's kind of what you're looking for. I had to start several of these players because of the fact that I had late COVID injuries. And because I had them on my bench, I didn't have to go scurrying around trying to make something out of nothing. It's, I can slot Isaiah McKenzie. Oh, look, he scores a touchdown, gets 125 yards. I've got Rex Burkhead. Okay, he goes off for 149 yards. People look at that, and yes, the result in its own right is a bit lucky because I would never have projected them to get anywhere near that kind of score. But the skill came that I had those players on my bench to put into a lineup. They weren't just flukes that I'd just gone, oh, I'll go with him. It was a strategy play to have them on the bench. Yeah. If you didn't need them and they were on your bench, it meant nobody else got them. It's a win-win situation, but you've got to have the players on your bench. So don't just sit here and have like 3 quarterbacks on your bench. Like, it's just stupid. You don't need.
Or if you're one of those guys now with Gabriel Davis, who you know now is not going to play, don't bother hanging on to him.
Anyone that you know is not going to play, anyone that you know, if you're carrying spare DSTs, why? Get rid of them. There's no need to kickers. If you've got a spare kicker, why have you got a spare kicker? You can't tell me your league has like no kickers that you could just pick up if something did happen to your kicker. Like, let's just get it right. You're probably not going to find a great quarterback out there as an option. You might have to go with Jimmy Garoppolo. Fine. At least if you've got Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not a great option. I don't love Jimmy Garoppolo, but he's better than what's left probably.
I'm in the final of VFFC with Jimmy Garoppolo, so I'll take that.
Well, there you go. And I think that's where you've just got to have those rosters lined up with covering in most positions. The only ones I'd say you don't need is tight end if there's no relevant tight end available on the waiver wire. CJ Zuma and Gerald Everett are the last 2, I would say, from a major league perspective. If they're gone, then fair enough. You could just punt that position. Kicker, you don't need. DST, you don't need a spare because DST can't go on COVID.
No.
So you should be fine there. and just go ahead and just pick who you need to pick. And just have those roster spots nicely catered between some upside play, but don't just pick up players for the sake of picking up players. This is the part where people try to get too cute and, I'm going to pick up so-and-so to block so-and-so. And that's fine if you know what you're doing. In each league, it's different. I'm not going to advocate against that strategy. But at the same point, don't have a player on your bench who you're not prepared to put in your starting lineup come Sunday. If you do, you should probably cut them.
Fair enough. Anything else you want to cover off, Murf?
No, just if you made your championships or you need a result tonight, good luck tonight. But if you made your championships, congratulations. It's a monumental achievement. 4 months of grueling work, hard work to get to this stage is a phenomenal achievement, regardless of the outcome of the final. But we're here to get you those ships. If there's anything I can do, reach out. As said on Sunday, don't contact me between 3 and 6. I'm not going to reply to you. People still do it every single week. It's not going to happen unless you pay for us by going on patreon.com/5 yard rush. But any other medium, try and get those start sits in early, get those lineups set well in advance of. There's no Thursday night football this week, so there's no excuse to not get a lineup set by the weekend. And then look at your start sits by then. Don't wait till Sunday. Have your lineup set Friday, maybe Saturday morning. Have them all set, and then you can just make tinkers as opposed to have to do wholesale changes.
Fair enough. As always, guys, thanks for listening. Follow us at 5 Yard Rush, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. There'll be lots of insight coming out. I know the guys are back this week with the DFS pod. They're back with the Dynasty pod. Their waiver wire articles out already. Lots of good stuff. As always, going into championship week. As Murph said, if you are in your championship, best of luck to you. But I think that's us about done, Murph.
Yeah, it is. And best of luck and enjoy your new year. Everyone, celebrate it. And the next time you'll hear from us will be 2022.
Indeed. Congrats. Take care, guys. Thanks, Murph.
Thanks as always. And don't forget, as always, keep rushing.